Hi, kids. Well, it's Grandpa again, and as always, I'm trying to figure out what time is it. Yes, it's story time. Well, welcome to episode 7 in our reading of the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Man, if you've been following our story, you can see that, wow, it is getting so sad. Just think of all the things that poor Augie's been going through. You know, most of the book up to now has been through Augie's perspective. Now, in our last episode, we started to look at this story through Via's perspective, through her eyes, how she saw things, how this situation affects her. And at the same time, we're learning a little bit more about Via. I mean, who would have known that Augie's facial condition could be affecting Via's life also? Sure, she's his sister, but I mean, the problem just goes so deep. For example, you know, Via has always been very patient. Her mom always tells her that she's such a good girl for being so understanding, that they have to give time to Augie because he's a special needs kid. And Via knows that her parents never have time maybe to go to her recitals, see her soccer games and so forth. And just as she said in the last episode, a lot of times her homework problems, she has to figure them out on her own because her parents are busy taking care of Augie. But she understands that, and she just puts that aside, and she just goes ahead and solves her own problems, figures it out on her own. But she's got her two friends that she's known ever since first grade that just seems they came up together through elementary school, through middle school, into high school. I'm talking about Miranda, for example, Miranda and Ella. I mean, they've been so close all of this time. And when they were admitted into the high school together, that seemed like a miracle because none of the other kids they knew got admitted into this high school, but yet the three of them who've been together all this time were admitted together. But when Via had to go away for a few weeks and she came back, she discovered her friends had changed. Now that they were in high school, they appeared not to want to associate with her anymore. They treated her differently. And Via felt this, but she kind of held it inside of her, but it was tearing her up to the point that her friends, they've completely changed. They've got new attitudes that they haven't, new fashions they haven't included her in on. And now she doesn't even want to be around them anymore. So let's pick up the story where it left off. I hear we're driving you home today. It was Miranda in 8th period. She had just sat down at the desk right behind me. I had forgotten that Mom had called Miranda's mother the night before and asked if she could drive me home from school. You don't have to, I answered, instinctively, casually. My mom can pick me up. I thought she had to pick up Augie or something. It turns out she can pick me up afterwards. She just texted me, not a problem. Oh, okay, thanks. It was all a lie on my part, but I couldn't see myself sitting in a car with the new Miranda. After school, I ducked into the restroom to avoid bumping into Miranda's mother outside. Half an hour later, I walked out of the school and ran 3 blocks to the bus stop, hopped on the M86 to Central Park West, and took the subway home. Hey there, sweetie, Mom said the moment I stepped through the front door. How's your first day? I was starting to wonder Where you get? I was starting to wonder where you guys were. We stopped for pizza. Incredible how lies just easily can slip off your tongue. Is Miranda not with you? She seemed surprised that Miranda wasn't right behind me. She went straight home. We have a lot of homework. On your first day? Yes, on our first day, I yelled, which completely surprised Mom. But before she could say anything, I said, school was fine. It's really big, though. The kids seem nice. I wanted to give her enough information so that she wouldn't feel that she needed to ask me more. How was Augie's first day? Mom hesitated, her eyebrows still up on her forehead from when I had snapped at her a second earlier. Okay, she said, slowly, like she was letting out breath. What do you mean, okay? I said. Was it good or bad? He said it was good. So why do you think it wasn't good? Well, I didn't say it wasn't good. Geez, Via, what's up with you? Just forget I asked anything at all, I answered, and stormed dramatically into Augie's room and slammed the door. He was on his PlayStation and didn't even look up. I hated how zombified this video game made him. So, how was school? I said, scooching Daisy over so that I could sit on his bed next to him. Fine, he answered, still not looking up from his game. Augie, I'm talking to you. I pulled the PlayStation out of his hand. Hey, he said angrily, how was school? I said, fine, he yelled back, grabbing the PlayStation back from me. Were the people nice to you? Yeah. No one was mean? He put the PlayStation down and looked up at me as if I had just asked the dumbest question in the world. Why would people be mean, he said. It was the first time in his life that I had heard him be sarcastic like that. I didn't think he had it in him. I'm not sure at what point that night Augie had cut off his Padawan braid, or why that made me really mad. I had always found his obsession with everything Star Wars kind of geeky, and that braid in the back of his hair with its little beads was just awful. But he'd always been so proud of it, and how long it took him to grow it, of how he had chosen the beads themselves in a craft store in Soho. He and Christopher, his best friend, used to play with lightsabers and Star Wars stuff whenever they got together. And they had both started growing their braids at the same time. When August cut his braid off that night without an explanation, without telling me beforehand, which was surprising, or even calling Christopher, I was just so upset I can't even explain why. I've seen Augie brushing his hair in the bathroom mirror. He meticulously tries to get every hair in place. He tilts his head and looks at himself from different angles, like there's some magic perspective inside the mirror that would change the dimensions of his face. Mom knocked on my door after dinner. She looked drained, and I realized that between me and Augie today had been a tough day for her too. So, you want to tell me what's up? She asked nicely and softly. Not now, okay? I answered. I was reading. I was tired. Maybe later I'd be up to telling you about Miranda, but not now. I'll check on you before you go to bed, she says. And then she came over and kissed me on the top of the head. Can Daisy sleep with me tonight? Sure, I'll bring her in later. Don't forget to come back, I said as she left. I promise. But she didn't come back that night. Dad did. He told me Augie had had a bad first day and Mom was helping him through it. He asked me how my day had gone. I told him fine. He said he didn't believe me for a second, and I told him Miranda and Ella were acting like jerks. I didn't mention how I took the subway home by myself, though. He said nothing tests friendship like high school, and then proceeded to poke fun at the fact that I was reading War and Peace. Not real fun, of course, since I'd heard him bragging of people that it had a 15-year-old who was reading Tolstoy. But he liked to rib me about where I was in the book. in the war part or in the peace part. And if there was anything in there about Napoleon's day as a hip-hop dancer, it was silly stuff, but Dad always managed to make everyone laugh. And sometimes that's all you needed to feel better. "Don't be mad at Mom," he said as he bent down and gave me a goodnight kiss. "You know how much she worries about Augie." "I know," I acknowledged. "Want the light on or off?" "It's getting kind of late," he said, pausing at the light switch on the door. "Can you bring Daisy in first?" 2 seconds later, he came back with Daisy dangling in his arms, and he laid her down next to me on the bed. "Good night, sweetheart," and he said, kissing my forehead. He kissed Daisy on her forehead too. "Good night, girlies. Sweet dreams." Once I got up in the middle of the night because I was thirsty, and I saw Mom standing outside of Augie's room, her hand on the doorknob, her forehead leaning on the door, which was ajar. She wasn't going in his room or stepping out, just standing right outside the door, as if she was listening to the sound of his breathing as he slept. The hallway lights were out. The only thing illuminating her was a blue nightlight in August's bedroom. She looked ghost-like standing there, or maybe I should say angelic. I tried to walk back into my room without disturbing her, but she heard me and walked over to me. "Is Augie okay?" I asked. I knew that sometimes he would wake up choking on his own saliva if he accidentally turned over on his back. "Oh, he's fine," she said, wrapping her arms around me. She walked me back to my room, pulled the covers over me, and kissed me goodnight. She never explained what she was doing outside his door, and I never asked. I wonder how many nights she stood outside his door, and I wonder if she ever stood outside my door like that. "Can you pick me up from school today?" I said the next morning, smearing some cream cheese on my bagel. Mom was making August's lunch, American cheese on whole wheat bread, soft enough for August to eat, while August sat eating oatmeal at the table. Dad was getting ready to go to work. Now that I was in high school, the new routine was going to be that Dad and I would take the subway together in the morning, which meant his having to leave 15 minutes earlier than usual. Then I'd get off at my stop and he'd keep going, and Mom was going to pick me up after school in the car. I was going to call Miranda's mother to see if she could drive me home again, Mom answered. "No, Mom," I said quickly. "You pick me up or I'll just take the subway." "You know I don't want you to take the subway by yourself yet," she answered. "Mom, I'm 15. Everybody my age takes the subway by themselves." "She can take the subway home," said Dad from the other room, adjusting his tie as he stepped into the kitchen. "Why can't Miranda's mother just pick her up again?" Mom argued with me. "She's old enough to take the subway by herself," Dad insisted. Mom looked at the both of us. "Is something going on?" She didn't address her question to either one of us in particular. "You would know if you had come back to check on me," I said spitefully, "like you said you would." "Oh, God, Via," said Mom, remembering now how she had completely ditched me last night. She put down the knife that she was using to cut Augie's grapes in half, still a choking hazard for him because of the size of his palate. "I'm so sorry. I fell asleep in August's room. By the time I woke up, I know, I nodded indifferently. Mom came over and put her hands on my cheek and lifted my face to look at her. "I'm really, really sorry," she whispered. I could tell that she was. "It's okay," I said, via. "Mom, it's fine." This time I meant it. She looked so genuinely sorry, I just wanted to let her off the hook. She kissed and hugged me, then returned to the grapes. "So is something going on with Miranda?" she asked. "Just that she's acting like a complete jerk," I said. "Miranda's not a jerk," Augie quickly chimed in. She can be, I yelled. Believe me. Okay, then. I'll pick you up. No problem, Mom said, decisively, sweeping the half grapes into a snack bag with the side of her knife. That was the plan all along, anyway. I'll pick up Augie from school in the car, and then I'll pick you up. We'll probably get there about 3:45. No, I said firmly before she's even finished. Isabel, she can take the subway, said Dad impatiently. She's a big girl now. She's reading War and Peace, for crying out loud. What does War and Peace have to do with anything? Answered Mom, clearly annoyed. It means you don't have to pick her up in the car like she's a little girl, he said sternly. Via, are you ready? Get your bag and let's go. I'm ready, I said, putting on my backpack. Bye, Mom. Bye, Augie. I kissed them both quickly and headed towards the door. Do you even have a Metro card? Mom said. Wait a minute, excuse me. Do you even have a Metro card? Mom said after me. Of course she has a Metro card, answered Dad, fully exasperated. Yes, Mama, stop worrying so much. Bye, he said, kissing her on the cheek. Bye, big boy, he said to August, kissing him on the top of the head. I'm proud of you. Have a good day. Bye, Daddy. You too. Daddy and I jogged down the stoop stairs and headed down the block. Call me after school before you get on the subway, Mom yelled at me from the window. I didn't even turn around, but waved my hand at her so she'd know that I heard her. Dad did turn around, walking backwards for a few steps. War and Peace, Isabel, he called out, smiling as he pointed at me. War and Peace. Both sides of Dad's family were Jews from Russia and Poland. Papa's grandparents fled the pogrom and ended up in New York City at the turn of the century. Tata's parents fled the Nazis and ended up in Argentina in the 40s. Papa and Tata met at a dance on the Lower East Side while she was in town visiting a cousin. They got married, moved to Bayside, and had Dad and Uncle Ben. Mom's side of the family is from Brazil, except for her mother, my beautiful grands, and her dad. Augusto, who died before I was born, the rest of Mom's family, all of her glamorous aunts and uncles and cousins still live in Alto, Lebanon, a ritzy suburb south of Rio. Grands and Augusto moved to Boston in the early 60s and had Mom and Aunt Kate, who's married to Uncle Porter. Mom and Dad met at Brown University and have been together ever since. Isabel and Nate, like two peas in a pod, they moved to New York right after college, had me a few years later, then moved back to a brick townhouse in North River Heights, the hippie stroller capital of upper Manhattan, when I was about a year old. Not one person in the exotic mix of my family gene pool has ever shown any obvious sign of having what August has. I pored over grainy sepia pictures of long dead relatives in babushkas, black and white snapshots of distant cousins in crisp white linen suits, soldiers in uniforms, ladies with beehive hairdos, Polaroids of bell-bottom teenagers and long-haired hippies, and not once have I been able to detect even the slightest trace of August's face in their faces. Not one. But after August was born, my parents underwent genetic counseling. They were told that August had what seemed to be a previously unknown type of mandibulofacial dystrophis caused by an autosomal recessive mutation in the TCOFI gene, which is located in chromosome 5, complicated by a hemifacial microsomia characteristic of OAV spectrum. Sometimes these mutations occur during pregnancy. Sometimes they're inherited from one parent carrying the dominant gene. Sometimes they're caused by the interaction of many genes, possibly in combination with environmental factors. This is called multifactorial inheritance. In August's case, the doctors were able to identify one of the single nucleotide deletion mutations that made war on his face. The weird thing is, though you'd never know it from looking at them, both my parents carry that mutant gene, and I carry it too. Wow, that's a lot of information. If I have children, there is a 1 in 2 chance that I will pass on the defective genes to them. I don't mean they'll look like August, but they'll carry the gene that's got a double dose in August and helped make him the way he is. If I marry someone who has the same defective gene, there's a 1 in 2 chance that our kids will carry that gene and look totally normal, and a 1 in 4 chance that our kids will not carry the gene at all, and a 1 in 4 chance that our kids will look like August. If August has children with someone who doesn't have the trace of the gene, there's a 1 in 100 probability that their kids will inherit the gene, but a 0% chance that their kids will have a double dose of it, like August, which means they'll carry a gene no matter what, but they could look totally normal. If he marries someone who has the gene, their kids will have the same odds as my kids. This only explains the part of August's This only explains the part of August that's explainable. There's that other part of his genetic makeup that's not inherited, but just incredibly bad luck. Countless doctors have drawn little tic-tac-toe grids for my parents over the years to try to explain the genetic lottery to them. Geneticists use these Punnett squares to determine inheritance, recessive and dominant genes, probabilities, and chances. But for all they know, there's more that they don't know. They can try to forecast the odds, but they can't guarantee them. They use terms like germline, mosaicism, chromosome rearrangement, or delayed mutation to explain why their science is not an exact science. I actually like how doctors talk. I like the sound of science. I like how the words you don't understand explain things you can't understand. There are countless people under words like germline, mosaicism, chromosome and rearrangements, or delayed mutations. Countless babies who will never be born like mine. Miranda and Ella blasted off. They attached themselves to a new crowd destined for high school glory. After a week of painful lunches where all they would do was talk about people that didn't interest me, I decided to make a clean break of it. They asked me no questions. I told them no lies. We just went our separate ways. I didn't even mind after a while. I stopped going to lunch for about a week, though, to make the transition easier, to avoid the fake. Oh, shoot, there's no room for you at this table, Olivia. It was easier just to go to the library and read. I finished War and Peace in October. It was amazing. People think it's hard to read, but it's really easy. Just a soap opera with lots of characters, people falling in love, fighting for love, dying for love. I want to be in love like that someday. I want my husband to love me the way Prince Andrea loved Natasha. I ended up hanging out with a girl named Eleanor, who I'd known from my days at PS22, though we'd gone to different middle schools. Eleanor had always been a really smart girl, a little bit of a crybaby back then, but nice. I'd never realized how funny she was. Not laugh out loud, daddy funny, but full of great quips. And she never knew how lighthearted I could be. Eleanor, I guess, had always been under the impression that I was very serious, and as it turns out, she'd never liked Miranda and Ella. She thought they were stuck up. I gained entry through Eleanor to the smart kids table at lunch. It was a larger group than I had been accustomed to hanging out with, and a more diverse crowd. It included Eleanor's boyfriend, Kevin, who would definitely become class president someday. A few techie guys, girls like Eleanor, who were members of the yearbook committee and the debate club, and a quiet guy named Justin who had small round glasses and played the violin, and who I had an instant crush on. When I'd see Miranda and Ella, who were now hanging out with the super popular set, we'd say, "Hey, what's up?" and move on. Occasionally Miranda would ask me how August was doing, and then say, "Tell him I said hello." This I never did, not to spite Miranda, but because August was in his own world these days. There were times at home that we never crossed paths. Grands had died the night before Halloween. Since then, even though it's been 4 years, this has always been a sad time of year for me. For Mom too, though she doesn't always say it. Instead, she immerses herself in getting August's costume ready, since we all know Halloween is his favorite time of year. This year was no different. August really wanted to be a Star Wars character called Boba Fett, so Mom looked for a Boba Fett costume in August's size, which strangely enough was out of stock everywhere. She went to every online store, found a few on eBay that were going for an outrageous amount, and finally ended up buying a Jango Fett costume that she then converted into a Boba Fett costume by painting it green. I would say, in all, she must have spent 2 weeks working on that stupid costume. And no, I won't mention the fact that Mom had never made any of my costumes, because it really has no bearing on anything at all. The morning of Halloween, I woke up thinking about Grands, which made me really sad and weepy. Dad kept telling me to hurry up and get dressed, which just stressed me out even more, and suddenly I started crying. I just wanted to stay home. So Dad took August to school that morning, and Mom said I could stay home, and the two of us cried together for a while. One thing I knew for sure, however much I miss Grands, Mom must have missed her more. All those times August was clinging to life after surgery, all those rushed trips to the ER, Grands had always been there for Mom. It felt good to cry with Mom. For both of us. At some point, Mom had an idea of our watching The Ghost and Mrs. Muir together, which was one of our all-time favorite black and white movies. I agreed that it was a great idea. I think I probably would have used this weeping session for an opportunity to tell Mom everything that was going on at the school with Miranda and Ella. But just as we were sitting down in front of the DVD player, the phone rang. It was a nurse from August's school calling to tell Mom that August had a stomach ache and should be picked up. So much for the old movies and mother-daughter bonding. Mom picked up August, and the moment he came home, he went straight to the bathroom where he threw up. Then he went to his bed and pulled the covers over his head. Mom took his temperature, brought him some hot tea, and assumed that August's mom's role again. Mom took his temperature, brought him some hot tea, and assumed the August's mom role again. Via's mom, who had come over for a little while, was put away. I understood, though. August was in bad shape. Neither one of us asked him why he had worn his bleeding, screaming costume to school instead of the Boba Fett costume Mom had just made for him. If it had annoyed Mom to see the costume she had worked on for 2 weeks tossed to the floor, unused, she didn't show it. Let's stop right there, and we can see that there is a lot going on in Via's life because her old friends have cut her loose. They've kind of ghosting her on social media and everything. But it looks like she's meeting a new friend also. So things are starting to change for Via. Huh? So when we come back for episode 8, let's see where it goes from there. Okay? And till then, remember, you are strong, you are smart, and you are loved. See you next time. Bye.